Earlier this week on my YouTube channel, Acronym TV, #1, YouTube.com/Acronym TV #1, I interviewed CodePink co-founders Medea Benjamin and then later Diane Wilson. Diane Wilson is on day 58 of a hunger strike demanding the immediate release of the 86 prisoners in Guantanamo Bay who were cleared for release over 3 years ago. CodePink joined with Witness Against Torture in a protest in front of the White House gate, and during that protest, Diane Wilson, who was well into her 60s, was assisted over the fence of the White House, and we have video of that we'd like to roll to now.
The White House symbolizes nothing to me anymore because president after president, Democrat after Republican, they all say the same thing. They all ignore the very important issues that could make this country great. What the United States, its elected officials, its president, its people are allowing is the torture, the indefinite detainee of people who are innocent.
So what Diane Wilson was trying to do there was deliver a message, or manage through the media a message to President Obama that the 86 individuals in Guantanamo Bay who were cleared for release 3 years ago by several branches of our government and whom Carl Levin referenced when sending a letter to President Obama on May 6th, said you have the ability to immediately clear these people. That's what Diane Wilson was trying to do there. Medea Benjamin, it's been over of CodePink, it's been over a month since she interrupted President Barack Obama in his national security speech, in which she said quite clearly, you have the power, Mr. Obama, Mr. President, to release these prisoners. Obama is saying, my hands are tied, Congress won't do it, I want to close down Guantanamo Bay, I want to release these people. But guys, I'm curious to know what you think about this. President Obama has in the power in his hands, according to the chair of the Armed Services Committee, Carl Levin, Democrat from Michigan, the ability to immediately release these prisoners from Guantanamo Bay and begin the process of shutting down that detention center.
Well, first off, it's more complex than that. I mean, even if Carl Levin says he has the power to do it, I'm blaming the president because I think this is an issue that he promised and should have done more about and stood behind. A tiny bit of it goes to Congress that came out and said, we don't want these guys in our backyard. We don't want them in our maximum security prisons, which are good enough for people who bomb and kill and maim and assassinate. We don't think that that's strong enough. We don't want them in there. So what the president was up against was no on every single part of his agenda, and this was a part of his agenda. Now that that there are other avenues, he also didn't stand behind it hard enough. He sort of floated it. It went, and then he let it disappear, which frustrated the hell out of me. Happens from time to time. Well, it happens to all presidents, but it frustrated the hell out of me on this issue because it was a simple one. It was one he made a centerpiece of his first election, and nothing ever happened to it.
This goes to the heart of who we are as a country. Well, can we detain people without charge or trial indefinitely? And we know that these 86 men were rounded up. As the American cowboys went into Afghanistan waving money around.
100%. And not enough has been done.
So what if it's politically expedient or not? That's, to me, that doesn't hold water.
Well,
on
politically
this
expedient, I mean, it's not a question of expedience here. I'm talking about expedition. I don't see what the president's options are except for fighting, and when he has to fight, he sometimes comes away from that fight. And on this issue, he didn't fight because he was up against and still is up against an intransigent Congress that has to approve this too. I mean, he could release them into the ether, and I don't think that is exactly what he wants to do either.
But
so I think
you're thinking about a political avenue for a solution.
I'm not. I don't think there's any politics to the president on this issue right now, because I think the will of most of his constituents is within his party, certainly, and people who voted for him, is that they want this over. And he's also not up for election again. And I don't think this is going to hurt Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden or Martin O'Malley or whoever it is that, unless something were to happen, they're not going to hold them responsible. We're not. I think it is just a little more complex than Carl Levin's letter suggests it is.
So does the man who has the ability to create a kill list and drop drones on innocent victims, he doesn't have the same ability or the power to make this happen if he really wanted it to happen?
I don't think he does. No, I think that, I think they're a little bit apples and oranges. I think one is one issue and the other is the other issue. And I think this issue on Guantanamo is so damn frustrating that the president isn't more vocally behind it and doing things, because he can't can, as president, change the conversation about it, which he needs to do before he takes the action with it. And he's shown no interest in changing the conversation on it.
So I want to broaden it just a little bit really fast. So I think sometimes, especially for Americans who aren't particularly politically interested or invested or sophisticated, the decision to go to war can seem fairly simple. And I think we obviously understand that that decision is never simple, but it's never just about the stated reason that we go to war. And the problem that I have with many of our military interventions is it's never done when the military conflict is ended. There are these ripples of the effects on individual people's lives, people in Guantanamo that we may not see on the news every day, and it forces us into these completely immoral situations that linger for years or decades after the war is over. And I hate to see this, and I agree with you.
And this is unprecedented too.
The holding of the,
yeah, I mean, it's not unprecedented in history, but in modern history,
yes.
Unprecedented. You have people who've not been tried, who have no date to be tried. It is
might
unjust.
Never be
it
tried.
is un-American. It is angering.
Exactly.
You only have to go back to World War II to say that we have a precedent for detaining,
that's what I'm saying.
Population,
Yeah.
And I think that it is a complex issue. I agree with you there.
Yeah.
But the idea that the kill list and the Guantanamo prisoners are apples and oranges, I'd like to just offer this for your consideration. The argument's been made that the kill list exists because Obama realizes the unconstitutionality of Guantanamo Bay, and it's easier to kill without charge or trial than it is to imprison without charge or trial.
There is that argument. I can't pretend to know why that's, as I've said many times, if George, and I don't think it's a double standard, if George W. Bush were doing the kill list, I would have huge problems with it.
Exactly.
It's not hypocritical for me to have less problem with Barack Obama's kill list because I generally trust him more than I trusted my last president.
You trust the idea of one person in an office holding the power to be judge and jury over an American citizen, Anwar al-Awlaki, in Pakistan?
I'm speaking in general terms. I'm uncomfortable with this kill list. I'm uncomfortable with this idea. The person, Barack Obama, I trust more than the person George W. Bush, and that's just personal.
And it doesn't
I'm
mean
not saying
trust
you
in an
have
absolute sense.
It doesn't
mean
mean trust. It's not blind trust either.
Yes.
I mean, I will call him out as I do when I'm upset with what he's doing.
And I hear you, and I might even agree with you. But the question now that I'm reframing is: do you trust the office of the president to have the power of judge, jury, and executioner over American citizens?
Without consult, absolutely not. And the transparency issue is the biggest
without
issue
due process
I have.
Of law
Without due process of law, even. Yeah. So no. But we have a presidency. We're not getting rid of it. The person who's in it, I trust more than the last person who was there. So I'm just sort of defending my own, what may be hypocritical. One thing I want to point out in Dennis's story that was just cool, which I've never seen as much time as I've followed politics. I've never seen what happens when someone jumps over the fence of the White House.
I wouldn't advise
I know. That's wild. That was just so cool.
That dog was terrifying.
That dog was terrifying. It doesn't
also,
make you want to jump.
A mid-60s woman who's on month 2 of a hunger strike, who's already frail enough. Be careful with her arms.
Right.
That seems a bit too rough.
Although, I guess they probably didn't know who, that it was the hunger strike. You have to assume that everyone there is coming in with a real agenda. And anyway, it's just cool
when I
to see.
interviewed her on Monday, she did admit that she's an activist who works from the heart and doesn't necessarily have a plan. So I'm not sure if she went there thinking I'm going to go over the fence or not.
Right.
Maybe.
It was just interesting. We never see it. I hadn't seen it until I saw it just now. It was very interesting.